It was the morning. I was in a new class for the new trimester, the second trimester, and it was December 6th something. And I remember it's been a while, but I remember we did our work, and then when we were finished with it, we just talked, and I just talked to this other kid. His name was Thomas, and we didn't really know each other, so we were just talking, trying to get to know each other or something. And then I don't remember what we were saying. We played just like a game, we were just doing stuff that we would do in a classroom. And then it gets up to the point where I say I would never get so mad where I would tell someone to like shut up, or else like I would never make a threat. Like I would never say shut up or I'm gonna show up to school. And the teacher just heard the second part of that, obviously, and then talked to me about it. And then afterwards I told her what I really said, and still she called the principal anyway. And then I was brought to the principal's office, and then just a lot more happened in there. And then there was an officer behind her that she just like kept showing things to. And I'm pretty sure he knew that like there was like nothing, because he was just like sitting there and looking like what he was supposed to do. I don't know. I didn't catch his name. He wasn't there for very long, but then afterwards I just sat in that room probably for like half an hour, maybe 40 minutes by myself or something. And then eventually, like, everyone comes in except for my mom, who comes in like 10 minutes later, and they're just asking me questions, like, I think just about what I said, or other things like, can I do this? Can I do that at home or whatever?
Like what? What did they ask you? What you can do at home?
I can only remember some of the questions that they asked her when she was in the room, like, do I have access to guns at home? Which was no, obviously. Is there? Yeah, but it was in a safe. There's just questions if I could access something that could hurt somebody, pretty much. And most of them were just like, no, or like they're locked behind something. And like I just basically couldn't get to those things. And then afterwards, I I don't remember what they said, but I remember like the basis of it. Like they said, if we do this, I can go home, which was like go to a therapist or medical evaluationist. And they said if we did that when we left there, I could just go home and things would happen later on. But then eventually they just come in.
The detective got there.
The detective got there, I guess, and then he comes in the room, the detective, and I don't know the words, but I was arrested afterwards. Told me to get up and just get ready to go, I guess.
You're going to jail is what he said to him.
Domestic terrorism, I think. Yeah, I would say it was a noisy room. I can remember that. And she was passing back papers like across the room. So I wouldn't say she had an accurate statement at all.
Mind you, this was during COVID and everybody had masks on.
Yeah, so it would have been harder to hear from a range anyway.
Yeah, so I actually received a call. It was 10 o'clock because I had just gotten to work, and I was told I need to come and get my son. He is in big trouble. I raced down to the school. It took me about 15 minutes to get there. As soon as I got there, I wanted to see my son, and Megan O'Brien, the principal, she came out and she told me they're not ready for me yet. And she proceeded to come back out within an hour and a half, 3 different times, and tell me that they were not ready for me yet. So basically what they were doing going through his phone is they had found that picture of Kyle Rittenhouse, and they had found the picture of the prosecutor during that trial where he was holding an AK-47, whatever kind of gun it was. I'm not very familiar with guns. It was a big gun. And basically they were looking at these pictures on his phone, and I actually had the vice principal, Andrew Tomzak. He showed me the picture of Kyle Rittenhouse and told me that my son had terroristic tendencies because of that. Absolutely. It was political persecution from the very beginning. The school staff already knew who I was as a mother. We had only been to this school for 2 months before this happened. We just moved out to the country to provide our kids just a better lifestyle growing up, more wholesome. We just thought this was going to be a little bit more conservative, and we were wrong. So my first complaint was about the mask mandate, and my second complaint was about a gender poster that was in the science class. So they knew who I was when they had my child in this situation, and they took full advantage of it. Think about where we were in 2021, just the political hostile nature that we were in. It was our white conservatives with targets on their back. And unfortunately, our children, even during this investigation, I found an assignment in my son's backpack where they were teaching that Christians worship Allah. And I turned that assignment in during the investigation. So I think that that was motive as well to railroad my 14-year-old innocent son.
So
I only had the class that it was in for the second semester, which was only a few days, but it was world history. I think it was just learning the religions and what they worship. And I think the assignment she's talking about was called a flowcabulary, which takes like learning into a song form.
Yeah, so the teacher played a song and had the kids fill in the blanks. And I have no problem reading you that second page of that assignment while you guys still talk, just so you can hear how egregious it is. Gotcha.
Yeah.
So the second page of the assignment, it is continuing the Christian column from page 1, and it says, God the Father, the Son, that's Jesus, and the Holy Ghost, that's what they believe in. It was their mission to spread faith. That's why the religion is so big today. Thou shalt not kill, turn the other cheek, avoid extremes, find the middle way, fixed in yoga, do thy work. There is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his prophet. This is what they were teaching in freshman history class. But we do have to believe that the greater of good was this assignment being turned in, being looked at, and these children not having to be confused any longer that Christians worship Allah.
They take my fingerprint and do like all the what do you call it, the registering stuff, and then they register me or whatever, and then I just sit in a waiting room for like, I couldn't even tell you if it was like a few hours or like 8 hours. It was hard to tell.
He was basically threatened that they were going to tear him up, his white meat, fresh meat. He was basically threatened if he was put into general population. But during that time, I was praying to the Lord and just asking to protect my son, and he was never put into general population. Thanks be to God.
Well, I was in the police station for however long, and then I was actually put into the facility. What was it? The Detroit Juvenile Detention Center.
So he left the school in handcuffs when the bell rang. They waited for the bell to ring so they could parade him out to the car. A little humiliation. So he actually left the school about 2:45, and he stayed at the Huron Township Police Department until about, I believe it was 6:45. I actually arrived at about 5 o'clock with food for him because the only couple minutes we did get to speak, he told me he was starving. So I known, come 5:45, whatever time it was, that my son was hungry. So I went to Burger King and I got him some food, and I just wrote on the brown bag, God loves you, God has you, be strong. I remember I pulled up and the detective, Gerard, came out, and I said, can you please give this food to my son? And he said, no. And I gave him this mama look. And I said, my son hasn't eaten all day. Can you please give him this food? And he then grabbed the bag and he gave it to him. and then they took him, I think it was about 6:20, it says on the papers, to the juvenile justice in Detroit.
Like a 8 by 10 cinder block cell.
Innocent 14-year-old child. Yeah, so I mean, kind of fast forward a little bit. I'll kind of fill in some of the gray areas. He was given notice that he was going to have an expulsion hearing a couple days later. So at his expulsion hearing, the vice principal, Andrew Tomzak, he even said that this was done in a joking manner. But then he sat during our criminal trial and he tried to say that Dillon admitted to him that he had made that threat, which was just a complete lie. He perjured himself. He should absolutely be arrested. But the judge was able to see past all of the lies. He was able to see there was a false narrative that was created and a false fear that was put out in the community. And he found Dillon not guilty. He told Dillon that he was sorry this happened to our family. He doesn't see anything that even should have been perceived as a threat. And he told him that he was free to go, and he was found not guilty. And that was after fighting a long battle for a year. They tried to give us off-record plea deals. The first one, they wanted him to plead guilty to disorderly conduct, which I said my son was not drunk in the street naked. He did nothing wrong. The second plea deal, they wanted him to write an apology letter that said he was sorry. At that point, I went and asked him what he thought about that, and he said that they should be writing him a letter. So we did not write the letter. We powered forward and we went to trial, and we actually went trial by judge, and the judge found him not guilty. It was all over the place. They basically put out the false narrative, but when he was found not guilty, it was crickets. I didn't have a state representative knocking on my door, trying to help defend my son like they did the MS-13 gang member. There's been no apology. There's been no accountability. I personally believe that the state prosecutor, Kim Worthy, should be held accountable. When I talked to my first lawyer, he tells me that the DA, he was just a third party. He said everything came directly from Kim Worthy. She did not want to drop this case. She wanted to pursue it, and basically all of the moves were coming from her. So she should absolutely be held accountable. They should not be getting government immunity. There was clear gross negligence. There was no due process for my child. And if you look at it, there was child abuse. So this is a minor, and government immunity should not even be a question in this case. And just the way that they manipulated his 14-year-old mind, at the time, and even when he was 15 and he took the stand, the way that they were trying to twist and manipulate his words, when he said he felt bad. Of course he feels bad. Our family had to move because of, harassment, wanting to get him out of this area. They basically put a target on his back.
Mhm.
I had one person who I believe was one of the school board members' husbands, because I remember at that time I looked at the last name. I can't say for sure. They sent me a picture of our family, one of my Facebook profile pictures, and they basically had future active shooter brother, future active shooter sister, and all these arrows pointing to our family. There was a little bit of accountability. The teacher is not there. The liaison officer lost his job. The detective was sort of demoted from a field detective to administrative detective. And I found out that the vice principal is no longer in the high school. He's in the elementary school. But that doesn't do anything for Dillon and what they did to Dillon and, his mental state. Something for them and their, making sure that these people who played these roles aren't in these positions to do this again, but it doesn't do anything for Dillon.
It definitely had an impact when it happened. I was stressed like every day, felt bad because I thought I had done something wrong. but it had a huge impact. But it definitely had an impact overall on what would go on from there on out. And we had moved. And it wasn't like a statewide story. So when we moved, it's like nobody really knew that, like, at the new school, the one I'm about to graduate from tomorrow.
Some things that kids kind of knew. I had also had some friends who their kids knew. So
Just take a step back and realize what's happening in the situation and think how you can get through it without it being turned the wrong way, and thinking about what you can do to not have such like a huge impact to stop things like it from happening.
I would definitely say invite God into your storm. God is a God of truth and justice. He is a God that is going to bring the darkness to the light. He is going to vindicate you. He is going to hold your head above the water when you feel like you're about to drown. This was the first night that I went without my 14-year-old child. It was very hard. And God has spoken to me tangibly through this experience, and He's helped guide us to get that not guilty verdict. And we're grateful for the relationship that we have with Christ. And if I could tell parents anything, it would be to invite God into your storm. No. So right now, our original civil lawsuit was I forget what it is now, but it is a federal court. And that judge gave everybody government immunity. So we've actually appealed the case. I've spent about $26,000 defending my son and his rights. And it is now sitting in the appeals court. We just got done writing our brief, and the 3 judges that get assigned to the case will determine if they want to hear oral argument. And then after that, they'll decide if they're going to turn over the lower court's decision. And I mean, we're basically fighting for a settlement for him. We would also like, him to be publicly vindicated. So much time has gone on now that I would actually be okay not going on the news. It's definitely not something that we want. But I'm fighting for a settlement for him. They robbed him of his high school experience, and I believe that they should help with his college experience. He wants to go to a college in Utah called Newmont for computer science. And that's why I fight. I'm fighting because what they did to my son was egregious. And I'm also fighting so this doesn't happen to another innocent child. Because if they can do this to my son, they can do it to anyone that they don't like. And, this is the classic case of free speech. The way that he said it, he said that he would not shoot up a school. So they really just took his words and twisted them. And thank God in the criminal trial, the judge was able to see through all of that. I've lost a lot of faith in our justice department, that's for sure. But I haven't lost faith in we the people. And, I believe that getting the story out there and, getting the truth out there, I do believe that people will care. And I did set up the Give, Send, Go for him for his college. It was this month alone, there was about, I want to say, I always forget the numbers, like 26 or so cases of these threats in a month. And when Dillon was found not guilty, they dismissed about 15 of them. So I think that just goes to show, mentally at where everyone was. And then here's another thing, Michigan, there was an agenda here because Michigan actually implemented what's called the red flag laws. So let's say our case happened in 2023. All my assets would have been seized. My younger son would have went to foster care. We wouldn't have had a dime to fight with, and we would have legally been given no due process. The agenda, that was in the mindset of these prosecutors when they were compiling all of these cases.